Looking good, looking good. Hey guys, my name is Stacey. Welcome back to another vlog. Today I'm going to talk to you about how to shoot at a fashion show. Recently I went along to New Zealand Fashion Week and I shot some behind the scenes footage for a cool brand called Tuesday Label. And so today I'm going to talk to you about some tips and tricks and what to expect at a fashion show. Okay, let's go. Hey guys, welcome back. So I've just started up my own business called Votion. It's a creative business, so I create a lot of content for people to use their social media, online, website, YouTube, anything like that. So it's all about photography, videography, graphics. And the reason why I called it Votion is because I think whenever you look at a video or a photo or any kind of content, you kind of get a visual emotion from it. You get a reaction from looking at a video or even from a photo. And so I came up with the word Votion being collaboration of visual emotion. So what I've just done, I've just started out doing some video content, and one of the things I did recently was I went to a fashion show at New Zealand Fashion Week. I was lucky enough to do some behind the scenes footage for a really cool brand called Tuesday Label. The team there are super friendly, great people, and the product is amazing as well. So I was very lucky enough to do that with the help of a friend to get access to be able to film some behind the scenes footage. So today I'm going to talk to you about some tips being at a fashion show. There's like a little bit of etiquette when you go to a fashion show, particularly with photographers and videographers, about positioning at the end of a runway, but I'll talk to you about that shortly. So hopefully you get something out of this. I'd love to hear some comments below and hit the subscribe button if you're interested in something more like this. I'm going to start documenting my journey, so hopefully bring some value to you to help give you some tips and tricks and some ideas about how to create content. Okay, tip number one. You know how at the end of a runway, so they've got the models walking towards you, and at the end of the runway they've got the photographers there and they're just pinging off photos. There's actually a bit of etiquette towards that. So at the beginning of the day, or during the day, there's tape on the ground at the end of the runway, and what you got to do is you take your Vivid along and you got to mark down where your spot is, because what happens is there's other shows going on throughout the day, so photographers are going to race off, do those photos, then they've got to quickly finish that shoot and then quickly race back to their next show. So what they got to do is you just got to write your name on this piece of tape sort of to mark your spot. But then there's rankings as well. For example, at New Zealand Fashion Week, there was a tag, someone had already written Getty Images, so they kind of get priority. And then also the other one was New Zealand Fashion Week. So the photographer for New Zealand Fashion Week, they get the front of the area that all the photographers are. But luckily enough for us, I was employed by the brand who actually hired me to videographer the event. So I actually got sort of priority in front row and sort of the front of the show. So the models came walking down and looked directly into my camera, so that was kind of cool. So I was kind of lucky in that sense. But then all of a sudden all these other photographers started coming around. They were giving us the sideways looks going, oh, whose is this camera? Who put that there? So just be wary of that. So when you do go to a fashion week or go to a fashion show, you've got to mark down your spot prior to the actual event starting up, because all the other photographers and everyone comes around you as well, and they've got this space, and it's kind of, everyone's elbowing one another for the spot, because it can be quite competitive in terms of getting the right shot from the show. So that's tip number one. So tip number two. Tip number two is get a bunch of different shots. I had my camera set up on a tripod at the end of the runway, so the models were coming down looking straight into my camera, so that I had that shot, so that was cool. But I also had another camera set up on a gimbal, and I used that to get a bunch of other shots. While I was sitting at the end of the runway, I was holding my gimbal and I had that down, and I could take shots of their legs coming towards us, so I could actually use a bit of that. So then when I was editing and then cutting to the actual model walking, the full body model walking towards me as well. Also using shots like, so push in and pull back shots on a gimbal. Other ones, I really like doing these other ones where I sort of like an appearing shot. So so the subject appears into the screen. So I would get my camera and sort of just prop it up and get it appearing from behind a wall or someone's shoulder. Or the other shot I really like getting was walking along with the model. So while I had my tripod set up with my camera facing down the runway, I then walked down to the side behind everybody that was watching the show, and I walked in time with the model. So I was walking along with my gimbal, just going back and forth with them So the focus is on the model walking down the catwalk. And so that was quite a cool edit. So when I was going to edit it, I could actually focus them coming down and then cut to my other camera and they're walking towards the main camera. So as I'd walk past a crowd head, I'd make sure that the head would be fully across the lens, so that would help me mask it out to go on cut to the next shot. Rather than just having a one-dimension video of just the models walking down the runway, I wanted to sort of chop it up a bit, following the model down the runway, having their shots of their feet, having another angle of the model walking towards her, maybe a looking up shot as well. That was really helpful when it came to the final part of the editing. But also when doing behind the scenes as well, I use a lot of sweeping. I also did a lot of push in, pull out shots, grabbing focus. So it was out of focus but then goes into focus on a particular subject, or some really close-up shots. Tip number 2 is all about getting a lot of footage and a lot of different shots, because it really helps for when you're doing post-editing as well. Tip number 3. Tip number 3 is communication. An example of that is doing behind the scenes footage when the girls are getting their hair done or their makeup done. I was doing some quite close-ups of the artist, the makeup artist or the hairstylist. And so rather than just jamming my camera in their face, just go up to them beforehand, just nice and just friendly, and just say, hey look, just letting you know, I'm just gonna take some video footage of you just doing your thing. Hope you don't mind. You just keep doing what you're doing and I'll just work around you. And 9 times out of 10, they're pretty cool about it, because they know that you're there for a reason. But if you don't talk to them beforehand, you just jam a camera in their face, they you can tell they get a little bit sensitive about it, or they get a little bit defensive about it, which is understandable, right? Like, not everybody's comfortable with a camera in their face, so it's just nice to sort of acknowledge them and say, hey look, I'm the videographer today. Just want to let you know I was going to capture some footage and just of you doing your thing. I always found that really helpful. Okay, tip number 4. Tip number 4 is checklist. Give yourself a checklist, so either the day before or the night before or however long in advance, give yourself a checklist. For example, you've got your tripod, make sure you've got that packed. Your gimbal, if you're taking a gimbal, make sure the gimbal batteries are charged and make sure it's all working. I would even set up the gimbal before you get to the event, so all you need to do then is just apply your camera and away you go, rather than trying to fiddle around with it, trying to get it all balanced right. I would suggest to balance it first, the day before or before you get to the show, so that way you just whack the camera on and away you go straight away, because the last thing you want to be trying to do is trying to fidget around with trying to get it balanced, and you're wasting a lot of time that you could be capturing some footage. The other one is making sure all your batteries are charged and you got your spare batteries with you. You've got your memory cards and they're all ready to go as well, so they're formatted, they're empty, and they're ready to be loaded. Anything you may need, just take it along with you as well. I've got a really good backpack that carries everything, and I just make sure it's all loaded up with little bits and pieces. So just be prepared for everything. So even like a pen or some tape or some quick tire stuff, just be prepared for everything, because you never know what you're going to need on the run, because everything's moving so quickly. You got to sort of be just have everything at arm's reach as well. So that's tip number 4. And tip number 5. So tip number 5 is they usually have a rehearsal before the main event. So my suggestion would be for that is go along to that rehearsal. The models come down the catwalk just in their normal clothes, so they're just sort of knowing that what their timings are. The music's playing, so you know exactly what songs are going on. Then they will test the lighting, see how everything goes in that sense. That's a really good time to get your camera settings right as well. Or if you're getting your camera set up at the end of the runway, set that up on the tripod, making sure that the focus is right, making sure that your white balance is in the correct position, in the correct setting. Yeah, everything like that you need to get ready before the actual show, because you don't want to be doing it while the show's on. You want to know what the settings are before the show kicks off. So it's a really good time to get along and just making sure your camera gear is set up to the right settings as well, and also what your tripod is set in the position as well. So that was a really good time for me to be able to get my settings right, even testing out my gimbal, doing some shots around that. I got a bit of B-roll footage from that as well, so I used a bit of B-roll footage from just the rehearsal, so that was kind of helpful for when I was editing in post. I threw a bit of that in. So just making sure that your camera settings are right and you know exactly where you should be at what time during the show. Cool, all right. Hey guys, thanks again for watching. I really appreciate it. If this is something you're into, please feel free to hit the like and the subscribe button below. I'm going to be putting out a bunch more content like this, so hopefully you find this beneficial and you learn something along the way. But in the meantime, here's the video from the fashion show, and I hope you enjoy it. Thanks again.
You was only two.